To everyone listening, welcome to the 10-second mark with Michael Hernandez and Charlie Nichols. Since everyone is new here, we're going to run you guys through how we like to do things around here.
This is a show by and for members of the Central Coast combat sports community. We are going to cover fighters of all stripes: MMA, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, you name it, we talk about it. From the amateurs to the pros, we are going to explore all realms of the combat sports community and what the Central Coast has to offer within it.
Now, how are we going to do all of this? In 3 rounds.
In the first round, we're going to take about 5 minutes to cover the fighting news of the month, from everything to UFC, Bellator, to any amateur events that are possibly going on in the California area. Michael and Charlie will be the guys to go ahead and inform you about it. We'll talk not only about the events themselves and the results, but also the fighters and the promoters and the gyms within it.
For the second round, we interview a member of the Central Coast combat sports community, taking all the time that they need.
For our third and final round, we will take another 5 minutes to offer our thoughts on what our interviewee had to say. Now, let's take a few minutes to hear our host.
Hey guys, this is Charlie Nichols. I'm a second year at Cal Poly majoring in political science and journalism. I hail from Seattle, Washington. My path into fighting is something that has had a huge impact on my life. After getting kicked out of middle school, my mom signed my depressed self up for some boxing lessons. Keep in mind that I'd probably only mentioned this like one time in front of her. I guess moms just know sometimes. A major shout out to Northwest Fighting Academy in Redmond, Washington is necessary in order to tell this story. The people running that gym know how to fight. Alright, now we can get back to the story at hand. Being in the ring changed my life for the better. I experienced a level of focus I had never realized was possible. Thanks to the efforts of my coach, Ronald, I was able to gain the mental toughness and discipline needed to get my shit together. Using these tools, I was able to get into a school like Cal Poly. I am so excited to be a part of this podcast and share the stories of people who can feel the love for the combat sports community in the same way. Hopefully everybody listening can learn a thing or two about the fighting world or just get familiar with the Central Coast community.
Hello, fight fans. My name is Michael Hernandez. This show here is the 10-second mark, which talks about California combat sports athletes and the gyms that train them. But not only that, us as hosts both have a passion for combat sports. As somebody that grew up in the Central Valley area, the personalities of Nate Diaz and Josh Koscheck were ones that I remember seeing plastered over any sports bar or any man cave at the times, and probably to this day for many garages that are still intact, but I still garnered this interest even as an adolescent. It was as a young adult that I became even more interested into combat sports. My first love was judo at the age of 13, but it was a fast fling in that I did not train again until the age of 19 when I dusted off my gi to try my hand in jiu-jitsu. My older brother had started training at 7th generation jiu-jitsu in Clovis, and I decided to find a gym near me after he told me about the mental health benefits that it gave him. My best friend had recently lost his life in a car crash in November of 2021, and I was a bit lost mentally, so I was for sure in need of a new hobby to keep my mind busy. I decided to pick up my hand at Trifecta MMA in Visalia in June of 2022 and got acquainted with a couple of local amateur fighters while training. I was enamored at the fact that these warriors did this for little to no payment most times, and yet were fighting towards a paycheck that was not very far away. My brother had coincidentally known somebody fighting on a 559 Fights card in September, and 2 of my teammates at the gym were fighting, so I decided to attend the event. And when I went, I just knew I had to find a way to involve myself in that atmosphere in some way. My skills have always been in my ability to speak to others, and now that I'm growing older, it has shown me that the need to broadcast the stories of others and build a bridge of understanding is something the world needs, not only in sports, but in everyday life. Both me and Charlie are excited to get this journey on the road for our show. For our first episode, we decided to try and highlight a local gym and fighter in the 805 area. 805 Kickboxing in Napomo, California has garnered quite the training staff for his athletes. With the black belt in BJJ from Carlson Gracie, Manny Marquez is the gym's jiu-jitsu coach, Mario Reyes being the head of kickboxing and Muay Thai for the gym. With his win this past Friday at 559 Fights against Mark Hernandez, Joe Palacios out of Lompoc is now 4-3 and is looking for a rebirth in the lightweight division with a title shot each between them in their respective divisions. This fight was a big determiner where both fighters would be in the lightweight picture in the amateur California scene, and now Joe's slated to fight on the 13th. But before we get into that, Ryan Garcia he had quite the big uh, homecoming for his boxing match into Texas, man. I mean, he had a ton of fans there. What did you have to say about it? We're here with my boxing expert, Charlie Nichols. He had a little bit to say about that fight.
Yeah, well, it was a really disappointing loss for the Ryan Garcia fans with that nasty body shot, but it's hard to say that I couldn't see it coming to a certain degree. Like, tank's a tank. It's as simple as that. You can't be letting that guy take shots at your body at all, or it's just not going to go your way. I guess the hands just weren't quick enough for Garcia, but that's just that.
Yeah, I mean, it did not seem like he was fully prepared out there. I mean, he was getting outclassed, it seemed, every single round. And I'm definitely a supporter of Garcia in the sense that he's a young boxer. He's definitely up and coming. And I mean, there's no one else out there in the boxing world that can garner a fan base like Ryan Garcia. I mean, look how many people he had tuned into that fight. And obviously, Gervonta Tank Davis is a beast in his own right. But I mean, he was able to garner a whole lot of fans into that fight. I mean, he had me watching that fight, and I'm not even a boxing fan. So that was definitely a huge fight. And as you said, you just cannot take those body shots from Tank, man. I mean, he just absolutely was delivering some of those, and those counter punches. He was just taking out Ryan in that second round when he went wild. Tank just hits him with that nasty counter, and I feel right after that, Ryan kind of locked in, and he was like, "Oh crap, this is gonna be a long."
Yeah, definitely. You could see the pain in his eyes when he took that knee. That was just. I always tell people it's way more painful to take a body shot than anything to the head. Everything to the head is just kind of disorienting. But yeah, that just a brutal display of boxing that night. And then, fun fact, you actually cannot watch MGM fights at MGM hotels, which I learned in Las Vegas this last weekend. Super unfortunate. I end up piece together highlights, but. Yeah, just brutal. And then on top of it, and to give some context to this fight, you've got that domestic assault charge for Tank, which is apparently the woman that accused him recanted her accusation, and but that's something I take super seriously. I don't really like rooting for people that are dealing with that in any kind of way, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of hard to tell, but I've always loved Ryan Garcia, so kind of very disappointing to see him lose that fight, but hopefully we can see maybe a rematch in the future.
And yeah, kid's only 24. I mean, 24 years old, fighting at the very pinnacle. And I just want to make a correction earlier. I said he had went back to Texas, but it was actually, the fight was in Vegas. Thank you for reminding me on that. And that's kind of crazy. I mean, not being able to go to the MGM Grand and go watch a fight, but I mean, it makes sense. The T-Mobile Arena's got to be a couple of miles away there, so that's probably the way they're looking at it. But yeah, I mean, 24 years old, Gervonta's 28. There's definitely a whole lot of room for that rematch, and it's going to be a good one whenever it does happen, because Ryan's going to have a lot more experience. Gervonta's obviously going to have a whole lot more experience, and hopefully by that time, Gervonta's not on his way out. We all know how boxing can be. I mean, it's a very revolving door sport.
Exactly, yeah, and you get a lot of ducking too, but from my point of view, I don't see Ryan ducking very often. However, I don't like to judge the fighters just because I think you should be taking the money above everything else, and if the money is not in taking a fight, then you shouldn't take the fight. It's as simple as that. But yeah, back to that fight. Yeah, I really hope to see a rematch at some point.
I think we're going to be in for a rematch here pretty soon, Charlie. I would probably say within the next 5 years, at least, they're going to be pushing that rematch on us. I mean, how many years did we hear the Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather stories? But, we are running out of time here for first round. It was great talking to you, Charlie. Let's go ahead and segue into that interview with Joe Palacios. Michael Hernandez of MLH Media and Valley Fight News, and we are here for the 10-second mark podcast with Michael Hernandez and Charlie Nichols. Is Michael Hernandez here today with Joe Palacios of 805 Kickboxing. I'm super excited to talk to this gentleman. He's a very talented MMA fighter out of the Napomo area, but I wanted to give him the opportunity. We gave a little bit of a talking at the most recent 559 fights, but I mean, I just wanted to give you a chance to give your story to the Central Coast community, man. How are you doing today?
Doing well, man. Thank you for having me. Not every day I get to give interviews or do podcasts, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, you're the guy, man. I mean, even watching your matchups in preparation for your match with Mark Hernandez, I was very entertained by your style, because it's a very cumulative style of kind of that jiu-jitsu combined with the striking. I mean, you really lean on your striking to go to the ground, but then you could still knock people out, man. I mean, we seen in that Vlad Buren fight, you put him out cold, and that's probably one of the sickest knockouts that I've ever watched ever. So I just got to give you your props on that, man. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you today about your career, kind of how you got started into MMA and everything about you, man. So give us your story, man. Give us your background. Where did you grow up? How did the Joe Palacios story begin?
It's a long story, but it's also pretty short for the most part, I guess. Grew up in I was born and raised in San Bernardino. Moved out to LA as a teenager. Wasn't a troubled kid, but I've had my scuffles growing up every now and then, and sorry, I wait for them to. Fighting is just kind of part of my DNA, man. Not saying that like, I grew up on the streets fighting for food and all that stuff. It wasn't that hardcore, but you just kind of, you're put in stressful situations your whole life. You learn to adapt, and the physical part is actually very easy, surprisingly. It's a lot of mental toughness that kind of forged me towards this path. How I got started in MMA, however, was I became a father about a little over 2 years ago. I was confident in my hands. I have just that God-given power. So, and I've fought growing up, so I was always thinking like, I could defend my family if I need to. I was like, I could defend my family if I need to, but I don't know how to do all the fancy chokes. And I had a little guy choke me out one time when we were training one day for fun, and I was like, I didn't like that feeling, a little dude that I had, 50 to 60 pounds on. He climbed on my back and locked up almost like a rear naked choke while I was still standing, wrapped up. And I was like, I don't like that. So I should probably learn how to get into some ground fighting a little bit. And so picked up jiu-jitsu about 3 years ago, right before my daughter was born. This was actually right before COVID hit, and that sucked. So I wasn't able to train as often as I wanted to, but mainly just wanted to learn some self-defense. Picked up jiu-jitsu, found out I was pretty decent at it, fell in love with it. Tried to get into some fights, MMA style, sanctioned fights, and didn't work out due to COVID, but because of that, I wasn't striking at that time. I had no striking, and so I told my jiu-jitsu coach, like, hey man, I've been trying to get fights and it's not working out. You think you could help me out? And he's like, no, that's a terrible idea. You're gonna get crushed. And so he introduced me to Mario, which is my striking coach now, and he's like, you want to fight? Let's see, prove it. And after about a day or two of striking with him, he was like, yeah, it's a good thing you didn't get in a fight, or you didn't get any fights, because your striking is terrible.
That sounds so much like Mario, because I mean, not to interrupt you there, but the first time I ever met the guy in person, he gives me stuff about not giving you an interview right before your fight. And I'm like, dude, I had so much stuff going on. I had finals week, I had everything going on, and you were a good sport about it. But that does sound like Mario, man. He just keeps it brutally honest. I can't wait till we get to have him on the pod one of these days, because he's a character, dude. But he's kind of go into what he's given you, because I mean he has that relationship with you that's obviously very close. I mean, it's seen ringside whenever he's talking to you. So would you say that he's really fundamental to your MMA career so far?
Oh, he's everything. He got me started. He keeps me going. You know, he's the one that gives me my fights. And you know, I actually tried without him, trying to, you know, get started in MMA and fighting, and surprisingly 559 turned me down in the past. They're like, you know, because I was sending them, Jeremy and Antoine, emails like, hey man, I want to fight, and thankfully they declined my offer, because I didn't realize that they were such a high level of talent as far as an organization goes, and it would have been bad. So after working with Mario a little bit, you know, he brought me in, got me started. I can't thank the guy enough, man. He's like a big brother to me, kind of like a mentor, sometimes like a dad. You know, it just depends on what hat he's wearing at that time. But I can't thank that guy enough for getting me started.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a character, but you can tell he shows a lot of love for you, man. I mean, even in the way that he was guiding you through that choke when I was kind of watching and I was recording. I mean, it seemed step by step you guys kind of knew in unison what you guys were doing. So that just goes to show that chemistry that you guys have when you guys are on the mats together, or even down to training together and getting certain combinations or getting sequences down. That definitely shows a big trust that you show in your coach. So I wanted to talk to you about your location, because I mean, you ended up in Napomo, and you're from the San Bernardino area. Correct. So how did you end up over here? I mean, it's a cool little 3 hour drive, 3.5 hours. Yeah. So how'd you end up over here? Was it the kid? Was it the work? How exactly did you end up in the Central Coast area?
A little bit of everything. You know, how does, you know, not to bring up a philosophical question, but how does anybody really end up anywhere? You know, it's just kind of the route that life pushed me towards. But yeah, I grew up over there, got into some trouble out in LA when I became, you know, 17, 18, decided to join the military. So joined the Air Force when I was 18, 19 years old, did that for about 9 years, and recently separated back in like 2019. But I got stationed out here in Lompoc, here at Vandenberg Air Force Base is what it used to be called. Now it's Space Force Base, whatever. Got stationed out here back in 2013. Loved the area. Surprisingly, a lot of people from Lompoc and around this area are like, Lompoc sucks, or there's not a lot to do out here, it's boring. But I love the calm and just the quiet of it, and so I decided to make Lompoc my home, you know, and I've been living here since 2013. Decided to, you know, set some roots down here and plan on staying here for a little while longer. That originally wasn't the plan. I was planning on moving to Texas eventually, or somewhere in the South, because I was also stationed in Louisiana, did a few deployments during my time in the service, and I loved the South, man, but this is home as well. But if I ever do move, it'll be somewhere southern, I believe. But that's kind of how I wound up here, man, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful story. I mean, it's interesting though that you said you were stationed in Vandenberg, because I mean, obviously you've traveled around a lot. I mean, you went from San Bernardino, you went to Texas, and then of course you ended up going to Lompoc, where is now your home, which I just find that destination like that, it's like on a map, you know. If you put that, it would be kind of funny. But what would you have to say was your favorite part about being in the Air Force? I mean, because obviously there's there's tough parts, and it's almost, you can compare it to the fighting world where there's positives, there's negatives. But what is something that you enjoyed in your service? Because I've talked to a lot of former MMA guys that were involved in the service. I mean, I don't know if you knew, but Isaac Johnson, another 559 fights guy, he was involved in the services as well. And it's definitely interesting to hear your guys' perspective. So I wanted you to share your story a little bit about that.
Sure. Best part of the military, easily the camaraderie. You know, I'm sure you talk to any vet, they'll probably lean towards that answer as well. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood unlike anything else. You know, it's actually very similar to the fight game, if you can believe that. You know, just a couple of guys and girls dedicated to something greater than themselves, and you know, I love it. You know, I missed, once I got out of the military, you know, I kind of missed that camaraderie, so to speak, and I found it again in fighting. You know, a lot of people think we're a bunch of meatheads that just like to beat each other in the face, but you know, if you're a martial artist, you truly understand, like, just the commitment that you can have towards another person and other people that, you know, you may not even like. You know, you might come into the gym, like, I hate that guy, he always, like, cracks me with uppercuts or something, but, like, you respect him and you love him, and if you see that dude or that girl, you know, out in the streets having a hard time or something, even if you don't like them, you know, you're gonna ride with them, you know. And so I love it, man. I love the fight game. Military service is the camaraderie for me, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like a Randy Couture like story, you know? That's what I always think of when I hear you military guys coming over, man, because you guys do have that camaraderie definitely intact, and it's always great talking to you guys because you have that martial artist intact as well. And it's always amazing getting to talk to guys like that respect the game and that really do fighting for the love of the fighting, and not just because of the glamorous lights or because Conor McGregor used to do it, or because they know that it's becoming a multi-million-dollar industry. You know, it's often misconstrued about me as well that I kind of do this for certain motives, but I tell people, I'm like, I do this simply for the reason that you guys do. You fighters showed me a world that I never thought would be exposed to me in the passion realm of sports, and the passion you guys display every single day. I mean, I feel like not enough people know what you guys put in hours wise, what you guys put in even financially to train. Some people think it's just you can go into an MMA fight and win, but it's simply not that easy, especially in today's day, especially as you said, in organizations like 559 Fights, Valley Fight Series, organizations all over California in the amateurs that are having this competition for you guys. So speaking about competition, I mean, describe your competition at 805 Kickboxing, because I mean, you have different guys here training MMA, and you definitely have some killers on the team. You're gonna fight with a couple of them on the card coming up in June, hopefully, if everything shapes up, and I'll be there hopefully, so I'll hopefully get to watch you in the main event. But discuss how 805 Kickboxing, your teammates, how that camaraderie has kind of built compared to maybe other brotherhoods that you've built over the years.
You know, it's different, but it's the same at the same spot, I guess. It's different in the aspect of, you know, we are physically hurting each other, but we're doing it to make each other better, if that makes sense. We're hurting each other so that outsiders cannot hurt us, if that makes any sense. With that being said, you know, I like to think of myself as far as MMA goes, as pretty well-rounded fighter. You know, I'm not just a striker, I'm not just a grappler. I do love doing those things, but you know, when I train jiu-jitsu, I'm not even a top 10 guy in our jiu-jitsu class. When it comes to striking, I'm not even a top 10 guy striking. I'm getting beat up every single day. And, you know, my family and people who don't really understand fighting, you know, they They think that I'm coming in the gym and just cleaning house with everybody. They're like, oh, is there anybody that's even on your level? And I'm like, yeah, there's levels I haven't even reached yet. Like, I try to explain to them, like, dude, I'm fighting, like that R. Kelly meme or whatever. I'm fighting for my life every day, bro. And, just last night, we were training, getting pieced up, dude, So there's definitely levels to everything, and if you think you're a tough dude, martial arts is a great way to be humbled, because there's always somebody better, faster, stronger, more knowledgeable, more technical, and that's part of the reason why I love this game so much. Is I love to look at MMA as like a big puzzle. It's a human puzzle. I love solving puzzles, and I like to think, well, how am I going to solve this? Well, maybe this guy's faster than me. Maybe I can, have some better footwork or head movement, or just whatever it is. I love the challenge of fighting in general.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get challenged here every single day. I mean, you have Carlson Gracie guys trained on the mats, training you, and then Mario Reyes obviously knows his stuff in the kickboxing realm and then the striking department. So you're definitely getting educated over here. But I just wanted to touch on some difficulties that you maybe have balancing that training in your regular life, because I know you spoke about being a father as well, and I know that sometimes it can get a little bit difficult with everything, with, of course, taking care of a kid and kind of explaining to a kid, like, yeah, I'm gonna go fight, like, and they don't really understand that concept. So kind of go into how it is being a dad, being in your career, and then also being a martial artist, because that's something that a lot of other athletes, I mean NFL players, MLB players, they have to deal with maybe being a parent on the outside or being a relative to others, but they don't have to deal with most of the time working a whole other job.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, man, because that is kind of one of the unforeseen sort of things that nobody really takes into account. When it comes fight night, the fans are in the stands, they want to see violence. They don't understand that, hey, for the most part, we're just normal people. We got normal jobs, we got families. I'm not saying all the fans are like that, but I'm saying for the most part, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into this sport. As you were telling me earlier, you're a full-time student, you got a job. Your plate's pretty full too. As far as my situation goes, I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are under 3 years old. I got a stepdaughter that's 13. So she does understand the fight game a little bit, and she loves it. She supports me, but my young kids, they don't get it. My 2-year-old daughter, she loves to fight already. She'll see me shadow boxing, and she's already doing the sis, the little noises when she strikes. But it's a big sacrifice, man. And any advice that I could give to anybody that's looking to get into this, whether if you're young and you don't have a family, hey man, go nuts. The world is yours. You've got nothing but time. For the rest of us that have families and jobs and things like that, you just really, I guess the best thing that I could say is, if it's important to you, if you don't have time, you got to make time. There's a lot of sacrifice and commitment, dedication that it takes to be successful in this sport. Anybody can hop into a cage and get beat up, but if you want to be successful, you do have to, unfortunately, sacrifice your family time a little bit. And that's honestly, that is the hardest part of fighting for me, is the time away from my family. One of my favorite things in the world is just being at home, being a dad, being boring, doing nothing, and just hanging out with my kids and my family, just not a care in the world. But my family also understands that this is important to me, and so they support me and they allow me to go out and train for 4 or 5 hours a day. And let's be honest, like I said, if you want to be successful, it takes time. It's there's no steroid that you can take that's gonna condense your time. There's no hyperbolic time chamber that you can train 30 minutes and get better and get a month's worth of progress. It's just commitment. So yeah, I mean, I think that's all that I can really speak of that for that question.
Yeah, and I can definitely see where you're saying with loving being home, because I mean, you spent so much time obviously in the services, 9 years, and then now you're in the fight game, which takes away time, like how you said, 4 to 5 hours training, and then sometimes you have to go to a 3-hour away location and you have to stay there for 2 nights. So it's definitely a very exhausting tax on the people that you love, and in a sense it taxes you as well in your mental. So I definitely give you your kudos, and I got to give you credit for being there in the family corner, man, because I know it gets tough, especially those weight cuts, man, and trying to be friendly in front of the kiddos, so it takes a lot of control. But I just wanted to touch on your MMA career, because I mean, obviously it's been one to enjoy. I mean, it's been full of highlights. I mean, even your Shane Christie fight, which was a title fight that a lot of people, I feel like, undermine, because that was such a good fight. That was it was an entertaining fight, back and forth, and then obviously towards the end there he was able to kind of pull ahead and get that win. But I mean, what are some lessons you've maybe learned from fights like this? Because I mean, I feel like you're a man that's taking lessons every single time you're going in that octagon, win or loss or draw. So what's maybe a highlight of your MMA career, or maybe a lesson that you learned that you were just like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to ride with this?
I look back at that fight, and it motivated me a little bit, not like in a negative way at all. Shane Christie, great guy. I like the dude. I actually got to talk to him at the last venue, or the last fight we were at. I believe he's making his pro debut pretty soon, so shout out to him. I wish him success and prosperity and everything for the future. But after that loss, I had another fight a few months after that, and just mentally, I wasn't there. And it's not like the loss, put me into a depression or anything like that, or, messed with me mentally. It was just more of a, like, damn, man, like, had I won that fight, maybe my career would have been a little different, And so, not that loss in particular, but just as I developed over that time, something changed in me, I guess, mentally. Something changed in my mind. I don't know what it was. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but there's a day I woke up, and maybe it had to do with, like the sacrifice that we were talking about, with losing family time and all that stuff. And I felt like, the harsh reality of MMA, which is I'm dedicating all this time, I'm losing time for my family, and I go out and I lose, I'm disappointing them, I feel like I'm letting them down, and it's not a good feeling to have. And so after kind of coping with that, one day I just kind of woke up, and I told myself, if you're going to keep doing this, man, stop trying to be competitive, start being dominant. A flip switched in my mind, and it said, use the pain, use everything, use the self-doubt, use the confidence, use everything that you can in your fight camps, push yourself past the limit, strive to be great. And I have no shame in any of my losses at all. I have no regrets. I use it. And even my victories, my wins, I don't get big-headed. I'm not like, oh, I smashed that guy, I crushed him. No, it makes me actually hungrier. Like, it makes me want to get back in there sooner. It makes me want to prove to my family, my friends, my supporters, like, hey man, I'm for real. Like, I try to stay humble in victory as I do in defeat, and I just want to go out and prove to everybody that the time and the sacrifice is worth it. It's not ill-spoiled gains. I'm not just going out and having fun, dinking around with my friends out here while we're training. I'm committed to something, and I want to be successful, and I got to use everything that I can in order to get that.
Yeah, I feel you are using your tools very wisely. I mean, even in that last fight, it just seemed from start to end. And Mark Hernandez is no joke. A guy that's challenged for a title in his own right for the 559 Fights promotion, and you were charging towards him. I mean, that was probably one of the most entertaining fights of the night. If there was a Fight of the Night award, I'd probably give it to him, because his ability to stand in there and your ability and to just push forward. And man, I love those guys from Crisp Kickboxing, because even despite the name, man, their grappling is absolutely up to par. I mean, he was putting up competition with you. He was rolling with you every single time. So it was definitely a war. And I mean, afterwards, I kind of got to talk to him a little bit, and he said, yeah, dude, he was a beast. And I mean, you look after, I mean, I was like, dude, this guy at 155, he's going to be a problem, an absolute problem, dude, because you got absolute mass on these guys. And I mean, 170, you look solid, but 155, do you think that's your weight?
After this fight, yeah. If I could shout out the Chris do they call themselves the Chris Boys? I don't know.
It's the Crisp Kickboxing.
Crisp Kickboxing guys. Coach Crisp over there, he's got some good guys. Shane Christie defeated me. And I know those guys are talented, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for those guys. And that's for any opponent, honestly, really. It takes heart to get in front of a crowd and try to not get punched or kicked in the face, not get embarrassed. But like I said, that flip switched in my head, and I don't know how to explain it. I didn't have any ill will towards that guy in the fight, but something in my heart was just telling me, like, you have to go out there and give it your all, and don't have any feelings for this guy, unfortunately. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. Like I said, I respect the guy, I admire the guy, but I had to prove to myself, most importantly, how bad do I actually really want it. So I was getting on a rant there, a little off topic. What were we talking about again?
Oh no, I was just asking you about you were kind of talking about the Crisp Kickboxing guys and how they motivated you to kind of push yourself after that Christie loss. But I mean, obviously, it's kind of been a weird way that the ladder has fallen. I mean, Tyler Saley, he fought Vlad Buren, who you fought, and then Shane Christie fought you, and then you eventually fought Mark Hernandez. So it's been a whole connection of guys that have all sort of been connected in some sort of way. But I mean, that just goes to show the talent that you have. I mean, being surrounded by these top lightweights and these top welterweights in the game. I mean, Mark Hernandez, I could tell even after that fight, you guys kind of talked a little bit, and you showed that admiration, like, dude, you're a beast. Like, you took that in the I mean, because he had an injury post fight, and he just kept on pushing until that last round, dude. So obviously, kudos to you for getting that win, but got to give a big kudos to Mark for pushing through, because like you said, it's a warrior's mindset when you go in there. And I'm positive, just as much as you were pushing the envelope to try and get that win and trying to establish a name, he was too, because you guys were both co-main eventing, and that was a big night for both of you fighters. But I just wanted to talk about what's next for you, because I mean, you got some, sorry to interrupt you there, but you got some big plans, obviously, for the month of June. We got the Beatdown Promotions fight hopefully coming up, and if everything falls through with that, then you're going to be making your first ever appearance here in the San Luis Obispo area. So what would you say? Like, what would you say is really next for you? I mean, are you looking to kind of go pro in this next year or so? Because I know you said that, you know, father time isn't catching up, you know. So, I mean, obviously, in the best way, you got to kind of get things rolling here for the MMA career. Are you thinking pro trajectory in these next couple years?
Definitely, yeah. Real quick, shout out to Vlad. That was the toughest fight I've ever had in my life. That dude hits like a truck, by the way. Big, mean Russian dude. I think he's Russian. I'm sorry if it got his race wrong or whatever, but I saw him and, man, like that dude's fighting style. Also, the hardest I've ever been hit in my life.
That man is an absolute, he's a unit. I mean, I was standing next to him after the post-fight interview because his fight ended in a draw with Tyler Saley, and I was just like, dude, there is no way this guy is at 170. This is insane. And then, I mean, I was right by the side when on the end of that third round, and he was laying those punches down on the ground and pound, and you could just hear the hands hitting the bones, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy's an absolute problem at 170. Like, if more guys are willing to go to the ground with that guy, I'm really afraid for what that guy's going to be doing to guys. And he has a great team at Team Alpha Male that are getting him right, and he's only going to get better. I think he's pretty young too, so it's only up for that guy, but he's a beast, dude.
I did not enjoy being hit by that guy. I'll say that. That dude packs a punch, man.
When you caught him in that fight, were you like, oh my gosh, like what the hell just happened? Because the way he fell, it was just insane. You guys were both throwing back and forth. I mean, not to backtrack because I know we were talking about it earlier, but it was such a key moment for the Palacios MMA. It was a really like your Jorge Masvidal moment. I feel like that probably is one of your most viewed fights. So talk about that a little bit more.
Sure, yeah. Well, as you know, I used to fight at 170 welterweight. Had some success there. I felt good, felt confident, and I never thought I'd make 155 because when I started training for jiu-jitsu and MMA, I was about 200 pounds. You know, before I got into MMA, I was actually competitive bodybuilder. So with the man thong and everything, I don't know if I can call it blackface or whatever, but the lotion and all. Yeah. So I did bodybuilding for a good portion of my life, and then got tired of it, man, because you get on stage and it's just depends on what the judges like to see as opposed to how you may actually look. And so I got kind of frustrated. I was like, what's the point of having all this strength if I can't use it? And so very shortly after that, I got into, grappling, jiu-jitsu, MMA. Yeah, started training around 200 pounds. Mario took me under his wing, told me, hey, man, you got to cut to 155. And I was like, bro, what? Like, I don't have any fat to lose, bro. I can't cut, like, that much weight. And he's like, well, maybe we'll throw you in welterweight or something. And so, I've had about 6 fights at welterweight, did fairly decent, felt good, confident. But actually, to backtrack to the previous question of, how I got started or getting into 155, when I was cutting weight for welterweight 170, I would only walk around at about maybe 180. So weight cut was easy, bro. Like 10 pounds, sometimes even 5 pounds just to make weight for a fight. And I was like, this fight game is easy. I don't know what everyone's talking about, this weight cut stuff. It's, I'm always making weight, and, I still always do make weight. But after, like the Christie fight and the other fight that I had after that, which I lost by a split decision, I see the guys that I train with in here, they all fight Muay Thai and kickboxing and things like that. And I saw their weight cuts, man, and they're little dudes. Muay Thai is a crazy weight class. They got dudes fighting at like I don't even, like 125 pounds.
125 pounds. Yeah, I know they have the most random weight classes ever. So I completely understand your logic in that.
Yeah, and so I'd see them making weight, and they're smaller dudes, cutting more weight than I am, and so I was like, damn, these guys are losing like 15% of their body mass for fights. And I saw some of that grueling weight cut during fight week and stuff, and I was like, call me crazy or whatever, but I was like, I want some of that. Like, I want to lose my mind a little bit and see what it actually feels like to be a fighter, because I never actually, I don't necessarily call myself a fighter. I'm just a guy who fights, I look up to these guys that I train with, and I'm like, those dudes are fighters, so I never really used the word fighter out of respect, because I felt like maybe I just wasn't on their level, so I didn't want to bring them down and try to propel myself up. But these guys inspired me to cut down to lightweight, 155. Like I said, I wanted to get lost in the sauce, so to speak, and lose my mind and be, maybe even yell at my wife at home a little bit, like, I'm losing my mind, But surprisingly, the 155-pound weight cut was actually easier than all of my welterweight cuts, which is crazy because I started this fight camp at about, a little under 180, because I was actually bulking up to get to 185 for a different title fight, but I ultimately decided against it. And so I was actually bulking up, got up to about 180, had absolutely no cardio, and I was like, bro, I can't even run right now. My legs are so heavy. And so we scrapped that fight, and then like the very next day, Mario hits me up. He's like, hey, we got a 155 in about 4 weeks. I was like, shit, man, like, I just put on all this weight. You want me to cut it off? He's like, you don't have to take it. I was like, no, let's take it. Like, I want to lose my mind a little bit. And so yeah, I cut about 25 pounds in 30-ish days, and didn't lose my mind, surprisingly. Actually fell in love with it. Like, just, it gives me that edge a little bit, cutting that weight and sitting in the sauna or running with my fat man suit on. I'm just like, screaming at myself as I'm running. Thankfully, nobody's around, because I'm sure somebody would call the cops or something. But like, I'm running up hills and I'm screaming at myself, like, this is how we win, Joe. This is how, this is what we need to do to be successful. And just pushing myself, and as I spoke to you before the fight, actually, when you had asked me, I was like, hey man, I had a good weight cut, had a good fight camp, just ready to put on a show. And I think I'm going to stay at 155, man. I love the way that my body feels. I love the way that my mind works. I feel free in there. I'm fast. I'm strong. I just feel very confident at 155. So going forward, I'm going to be doing the fight here at Madonna Inn. Hopefully, if everything works out, possibly, I believe we're going to do another 559 next month, and after that, I believe we will be looking at going pro. So, pro 155. I'm excited to go in there for longer than 3 minutes. Because at 170, my cardio was good, but my arms were just heavy, and so my coach was like, you need to cut some muscle. I was like, that's kind of counterintuitive to fighting, right? And he's like, no. It's like, if I could have you with no muscle, that'd be better. If you could walk in like Gumby, that would be ideal.
And a lot of people misconstrue that because they see guys that are units and they think, oh yeah, that guy's going to be good at fighting. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's good if he's like Brock Lesnar and he can just take guys to the ground and pin them down and beat the absolute crap out of them. But I mean, if it's a guy like you at the 155 weight class, that wrestling repertoire, it only has so much of an advantage until you meet somebody that's cutting down from a good 30 pounds, 40 pounds and trying to beat your ass. So it makes a little bit of a difference, you know. But I've really enjoyed our time today, Joe. I mean, you've been an awesome guest. You're my first guest, and so I'm just honored that you even agreed to do it, because I mean, but I'm super excited that you even made the announcement that hopefully going pro after these next 2 fights, the 559 fights in May, hopefully.
Yeah, I believe so. About 4 weeks from now.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So 559 fights, 97, and then of course the Beatdown promotions in June, which I'm going to be at both of those. So I'll see you at both of them. Hopefully we can get a post-fight interview in for both of those, man. Keep the streak going. But you know, just these last couple of questions here. Is there maybe something fight fans don't know about you that you really wanted to share? I know we were talking already earlier about your military career, about your children, you know, but maybe something that you do on the side, you know, an occupation or maybe a hobby of some sort, you know, your job, something that you really fans would be interested in.
I don't know, man. I'm like I said, I'm a pretty boring family man. The things that I find interesting, most people probably won't. But as far as like hobbies go, I don't want to sound like a tough guy when I say this, but I just like doing masculine things. You know, I like working with my hands, woodworking, fixing up my house, construction, breaking shit, fixing shit. Sometimes I'll walk around the house and break things just so I can fix them later. And my girl's like, "What is that? This wasn't broken the other day." Like, "Oh, yeah, one of the kids probably did it." "Well, I'm gonna go to Home Depot and you know, fix some stuff or whatever." Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm a pretty calm dude. I don't get out much. I'm not even really on social media at all. I enjoy my privacy. I enjoy being I don't want to say like a mystery, but you know, I like to keep to myself. So I'm sorry, fight fans, if I'm not clickbait for you, but yeah, come check out the fights if you want to see me be fun, I guess. That's when I'm the most alive, I guess.
Nah, man, I think you're more than alive. I mean, anybody that's ever got to meet you, I mean, even when I got to talk to you, it's nothing but good energy from you, nothing but great vibes. I mean, even when you're talking, I could kind of tell that you really like being reserved, just because you're really short-winded, you know, but you keep everything. You're very kind, you know, so I just wanted to give you that. You know, you aren't no rude body, you know, so just keep on doing your thing, man. You know, there's people that appreciate you for you, so I really appreciate Joe. But you know, just wanted to sign off here, man. Any last shout outs that you wanted to give? I know we were talking earlier about 805 kickboxing, of course your family, but any sponsors that you potentially have, or anything in the works that you wanted to kind of give a shout out to?
I mean, nobody in particular, you know, like you already mentioned, my family, you know, my wife, my kids, Mario Reyes, obviously 805 kickboxing instructor, Manny Marquez, our jiu-jitsu instructor, my teammates, obviously, anybody that's supported me. I guess my main sponsor, I guess you could say, is King's Barbershop out in Lompoc. Those guys always come and support me whenever they can, and just the overwhelming support that I've gotten from just Lompoc community in general. You know, even if they don't know me, you know, it's, you know, my girl is kind of frustrated with it at this point. She's like, "I bumped into another person that said they knew or they saw a video of you." I'm like, "Sorry, I don't know." You know, but like, I'm not a big deal in Lompoc, but I love to support my community, and I love the support that my community gives me as well. You know, any future sponsors, if I haven't met you yet, thank you.
Yeah, no, I believe that's the best note to end off, man. I feel like you're gonna definitely get some offers coming up here pretty soon, especially once you start on that pro venture. And you know, hopefully this podcast, man, anybody listening, go ahead and make sure to reach out to my boy Joe Palacios. He's over at 805 Kickboxing. He is a man on a mission. He is going to be the next lightweight coming up out of here, the Napomo area. Definitely going to be the Lompoc legend. I mean, you know, so That's going to be Michael Hernandez of MLH Media and Valley Fight News signing out of the 10-second mark podcast over here with Joe Palacios, our first ever guest. Thank you so much for your time today, brother.
Well, that interview is another example of how interesting fighters are. I know that guy was trying to convince you that he was just a family man the whole time, but I don't think he realizes how interesting his life is, Michael.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane talking to him. I mean, even down to the fact that he was serving in the military before he even got into MMA. I found that very interesting, and I really wanted to delve into that because that warrior mindset that we constantly talk about in MMA is shown in the military so often. I mean, having to see these crazy events and go through these life-changing experiences that not a lot of people are often having to go through. So it's great talking to him, and I can't wait to see his next fight. Hopefully he's able to fight here in the San Luis Obispo area, because I mean, that would be absolutely awesome to see him come and have that hometown support. But if not, then it's going to be great seeing him go to that pro level, especially at 155. Being there in person for his last fight, it was definitely a different fighter, different Palacios. So I'm very excited to see the rest of his career at 155.
Yeah, really exciting to be able to talk to guys that are going pro. I've sparred professional fighters before, and they're just like a different breed. It takes a different level of focus to get to that level, and just you can't even imagine the amount of work that has gone into that. The early mornings, the late nights, the amount of times you just want to throw up because you've been running so much, just absolutely brutal. And it's really impressive that he's got through all of that. And then obviously he probably learned a lot of that from his time in the service, which is just, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Guy is just super interesting. I wanted to touch on was his coaches, Joe's coaches. That's obviously just that's one of my favorite relationships that you get from boxing. I remember my coach from home, his name's Ronald, just absolutely phenomenal guy, and the relationship that you have with your coach is just something that you can't really find anywhere else. And this Mario guy just seems like you said, he sounded like a character, sounded like just somebody who cares about his fighters.
I really can't wait for his next fight. If he doesn't get to perform here in SLO and the card isn't able to come together for him, I'm really hoping that he's able to get on a card here in California, on a pro card. Hopefully Uriah Faber's A1 Combat or Spar Star or one of those will hit him up, because Joe's got such a great story, as you said. I mean, even coming from the San Bernardino area, coming from an area where not a lot of kids look to go into the military. It's either you're going into a gang life or you're going into a 9-to-5, and it was good that he found that military path. And now we see him in the MMA cage, because he's definitely putting some work. I mean, I talked plenty about that knockout that he had against Vlad Burin, but even down to his performances that he had against Christie in that loss, and even plenty of his fights, he's always put up a great fight. So I can't wait to talk to him. And then for next week, I mean, we're going to have one of your combat mates that you box with over in Paso Robles. Did you want to give a little bit of a kind of preview to the fans on what we were going to be talking to next week? He is most definitely one of the most passionate coaches I've met in the game so far. He has definitely shown a lot of love to his fighters, and he's going to have a couple of them on this upcoming card. And for Uriah Faber's A1 Combat, they're having their first Muay Thai card, actually, and I believe it's going to be in Long Beach in May, and he's going to be having two of his guys. One of the guys is going to be fighting for the belt. So even more hats off to that 805 kickboxing team, because they're just doing big things, and they're going to continue doing big things. They got some Gracies over there helping them learn jiu-jitsu. They got Joe hopefully looking to go pro soon, and then they already got some guys going pro in Muay Thai. We already know what the next level of pro Muay Thai. Hopefully they're going to that MMA scene. That would be absolutely awesome, because we definitely know those Muay Thai guys love to stand up and bang, and that's what MMA fans love to see, man. So I'm more than excited to see the future of 805 kickboxing and see what they bring to the table, especially for these Central Coast fans. They haven't had a pro athlete to cheer for since the Chad Mendez days or since Chuck Liddell days, and now they got Cody Gibson and Castle Williams. Hopefully they're going to be making their splashes in Bellator, and Cody Gibson's going to be on The Ultimate Fighter coming up here pretty soon. But it's awesome that we're having some young talent and Joe coming up, and hopefully he's going to push into that pro scene, man.
And then, of course, we're going to let our listeners know when and where that fight is with Joe, if it happens in the Central Coast, and if it doesn't, we'll still let you guys know. And stay tuned for next week when we talk to JJ Subia, the state champ of the 150 weight class here in the state of California. Should be a great interview, and looking forward to getting it done.
Yeah, we have plenty of guests lined up. We've been talking to a lot of people. We have Ray Rodriguez. We have Joe Palacios, a former pro fighter. They're both looking and talking about getting on the show. And we have plenty of other people from even outside of the Central Coast area that I've been talking to, hopefully looking to hop on the show. And I know you have your connections both here and in Washington. So I think these fans should be excited for not only this episode and its contents, but the next one's coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And so this has been the 10-second mark with Michael Hernandez and Charlie Nichols. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys for our next episode.
See you guys.